Namaste. Welcome to Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam for this Kaivalya Marga class. I apologize for not being able to do this live, but for some reason our streaming services was cutting us off and we were dropping frames, so there would have been a lot of interruptions in the video and the audios. So we are going ahead and recording this live, though we are not online at this moment, but as soon as I'm done with this, I will upload this video. And so what you're seeing is a recorded version, perhaps a couple of hours late. Let us all, as always, begin this class with 3 ohms to help our minds get settled and so we can focus. For the past few weeks, we have been studying the water element from among the 5 elements. And we are at a point where we are going to dive into a little more in detail in understanding the concept of the 6 tastes in the water element. We kind of introduced this in the last class with the 3 energies, principles in our body, known as the 3 doshas of Ayurveda. But this class, hopefully I'm able to finish it in this class, might seem a little academic, but I do want to forewarn you that it might be a little dry, maybe, I don't know, depending on your interest. I find these things very interesting. But I thought it is important for us to touch upon this much detail that is required, even though it's actually not really detailed. It's still in that same basic concepts that I do want to discuss in Ayurveda with you all. It might seem a little more detailed than what you would expect in this series, but I have been feeling that if I don't do it at this point, then I might miss the boat. And so it provides me a good opportunity to share these basic concepts with you all, and then I can follow this up as we discuss the fire element, food habits from that point of view. So earth, water, and fire predominantly deal with our ability to digest, transform, and maintain health in our system. So at one of these points, I would have had to cover this. So the earlier I do this, the better. So allow me to go to the slides, and then we'll take it from there. So we have been studying the 5 elements, and we are still in the sacred temple in our mind, in our spirit. I'm still there in the Jambukeshwara temple. I've taken the messages that I've received there, the importance of the 6 states, and I'm trying to expand it further for your benefit and my benefit, so that we begin to understand what is the 6 states, what is this links with the 5 elements, how is it all related to the 3 doshas, and so on. So in the last class, this is what we talked about, right? The 6 tastes: madhura, sweet; sour, amla. Instead of sour, I used the word spicy, but I'll stick to sour because that's like a traditional Ayurveda. So sour, amla, because spicy is kind of, it takes pungent, sour, salt, all put together is called spicy. It's more general in nature, but these are more specific. Amla, sour. Astringent is kashaya, salty is lavanya. Then you have pungent, which is katu, and you have bitter, that is tikta. So you have all these 6 tastes: sweet, sour, astringent, salty, pungent, and bitter. So as I mentioned at the end of all of this, right, in this class, as I mentioned earlier, this has to become part of our everyday um, meal. All these 6 tastes, do you taste them? And to what extent do you taste them? Or do we try to disguise them all in one masala package, if you will? The more we are able to taste these in our everyday food, the more the 5 elements begin to get balanced. That is the fundamental basis for this study, right? Because what do I want? I want the 5 elements in my body to work in harmony. I don't want one of these elements too extreme. Too much of earth or too much of water is what causes diseases and imbalances of the lower extremities, like diabetes, urinary infections, weight gain, and all of that related. And that in turn affects the heart and so on. So, so it is because of these imbalances we are where we are today as a generation, as a community, and perhaps as individuals. So, what do? We need to do while we are taking medications, modern medicines, and treatments, and all of that is going on. We need to educate ourselves and begin to incorporate a lifestyle which aims to bring all these 5 elements in balance. So we have yoga, meditation, and all of that, right? We discuss in the earth element also how in the water element we are approaching this from a food point of view, because for many of us, if not all of us, a lot our everyday lives and everything revolves around food on the plate, right? A man goes to work or a woman goes to work to provide food on the plate for their children, their family, and so on, and to secure money enough so they could have food to eat predominantly, and then of course a roof over their heads and so on. And so since our consciousness is caught up in the food to a large extent for whatever reason, okay, for survivals and so on, we have taken it to a whole different level. In other words, our consciousness has now got caught not just in the survival mode, but it has got caught into the taste element, and we let the taste dictate our choice of food. We have become slaves to taste, and therefore taste is dictating what kind of food I would like to eat, or I want to eat, or I must eat, and so on. And therefore we go back to that the cycle of creating imbalances because of these 6 tastes that you see on the screen, because of the imbalance of these 6 tastes. Either there's too much salt in the food or too much sweet, and so on and so forth. So in order to understand this, there is a science called the Ayurveda that has gone a great deal in understanding this from the elements point of view, from cosmological point of view. There's a term like that. The idea being that you and I, because what are the fundamental assumptions there? That I, as a human being, is not an isolated being, and I appear, yes, disconnected from the elements. I appear like that as if I'm an individual, but every part of me, every cell in my body is constantly interacting with the environment around me. And therefore, how do I capitalize on that? That is the whole point. So I'm putting things back in perspective before we lose ourselves into a detailed discussion of elements and tastes and so on and so forth. So keep this in mind. Always fall back to this. Why am I doing this again? Because I want to study 6 tastes, and because if I bring in 6 tastes into my food and observe which of my tastes I'm indulging in more, which of the tastes dictates my mind more, then it gives me an idea of which element is more in my body and so on. Okay. Having said that, what have we discussed so far? We discussed the 5 elements. Once again, going back to the blackboard, what are the 5 elements? Ether, Akasha, or space. Ether, space, these are all synonyms that can be used for describing Akasha. The vast expanse, which is a container for this whole creation. Akasha, from where vibrations, sounds, frequencies exist and are maintained. Then comes Vayu. wind, gases. Then comes fire, Agni, plasma, electromagnetism, electricity, and so on. Then comes water, liquids. Then comes matter, earth. So these are the 5 elements of creation. Wherever you look, in whatever way you look, in this particular dimension, the dimension of the senses, as far as the senses are concerned, these are the 5 elements that symbolize creation. When you go beyond senses, that's a different dimension. But at this point, we are dealing here because we have not even understood this. How do we then transcend this, right? So 5 elements. Then, in order to understand this in our body, we understand this in the form of 3 doshas: Vata dosha, Pitta dosha, and Kapha dosha. We call this dosha because dosha means imbalance. And we call them imbalances. Why? Because the concept of balance itself is imbalance is built into balance. In other words, if it's perfectly balanced, then it's perhaps not alive. Correct? The fact that there is life, there is constant imbalance. And the closer we come to balance, the more healthier. So being healthy is not a static state. You can't say, okay, I got it, now I'm healthy, now I can go back and indulge in all junk food and do what I want because I've achieved health. It doesn't work like that, right? Health is a state, a constant state of flux. The more we reduce these imbalances, in other words, we bring the Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, we'll learn more about them, into balance. The more we get closer, the more ideal our health will be. It's never perfectly there, never perfect, because it's perfect before you were born, it's perfect after you die, if there is a way to explain it. But that's no point. We won't even go there because it doesn't make sense. The fact that you and I are alive means there are forces in us constantly trying to get back into balance. And our choice of lifestyle, our choice of food, our choice of all habits that we encourage, indulge in, create these imbalances or bring these imbalances back into a state of balance. I'm using the word balance. I like the word harmony, but somehow I keep saying balance. So let's stick to that. Balance, harmony. I'll use them as synonyms here. Though there is a difference. But let me see. All right. So Vata, Pitta, Kapha. So let us understand Vata, Pitta, Kapha based on these 5 elements. And then we'll add another dimension of details into this. So we'll take the first one, Vata. Vata means wind. Technically, the dictionary meaning of Vata means wind. What is the main quality of wind? Movement. Without movement, there is no wind, right? If there is absolutely no breeze and everything is still, you don't say, oh, there is breeze, but it's still. You don't. If there is still, you say there is no breeze, there is no wind. So wind, Vayu, Vata, means movement. So keep that quality in mind. Now, these are the 3 energies. These are the three broad qualities. And then there is, of course, combinations, permutations of all these qualities in each of our bodies, and so on. So Vata means movement. I've given you one simple word so that you can understand the essence of the word Vata. What are the elements that Vata contains? What moves? Wind moves. Where does it move? In space. Space creates the wind to move, correct? So space, expansion, and wind are predominant elements of Vata. None of these qualities are good or bad. Please, again and again, I keep saying this so many times. Don't jump in at the back of mind somewhere. We'll compare and we'll say, oh, I've got too much kapha, it's bad. Too much of any of this is not ideal. We call it bad or good, but from medical health point of view, okay? Too much of anything is not good. I wouldn't say bad, but I would just say not good, not ideal. We want to bring that down. So Vata, space, wind, movement. What is space? Unobstructed movement. Space is where ideas come from, where inspirations come from. So the quality, when we talk of space in our body, especially from a health point of view, we are dealing with mental health here predominantly. There is also physical health. But mental health, where we are talking of the ability to speak clearly, that means your cognizant ability is good, and therefore you're able to speak clearly. Now, if there is, let us say, an element of autism in children, or there is some kind of a little impairment in the functioning of the brain, one has to look into the space element in oneself. Again, don't take my words as written on the rock. I'm just giving you ideas to think about. Because let us say an autistic child is afraid to mix with people. What does that mean? Mix with people means talk to people. He doesn't respond if you call out his name. He takes time to respond, and so on. So he or she. So the point here is space, because space deals with ideas, inspirations, ability to think clearly, the ability to convey clearly that matter, which I'm struggling right now. So my space is now being taxed as I'm trying to bring my ideas into fruition. So you are in that space, I am in that space. We are literally in a virtual space as well. But we are in the space element where there's communication taking place. So communication is to deal with the brain is to deal with space. So like this, how you can connect. So predominantly neural activity, nervous system, depressions, and so on. All this is connected with space element. I'm not an Ayurvedic doctor, so don't ask me questions with regard to your personal conditions. This is merely as a teacher. I'm just sharing with you based on the knowledge that I've collected over the last few decades of study, research. This is all I read, and this is all I do research upon. And we started experimenting them in our own lives, in my own life especially, to see if it makes sense. I drive Maya crazy with this, but she has hung in with me. So, all right, space. And then comes wind. What is wind? Wind is movement. Space is expansion, unobstructed movement. And wind, unobstructed movement. Yes, it creates a space for the wind to move. So, defects of vatas are when there is wind, a lot of wind, but no space to move. In other words, people who have vata concepts, or who are hyper, for example, where even when they are tired, that means the space begins to shrink, but the movement is ready to go, and so all of that creates a lot of hyperness in them. So all this comes from that. So such kind of people need meditation of space expansion. So it allows the wind to move more freely. In other words, the ideas to not struggle but open. Anyway, as you go on understanding and meditating on these qualities and studying upon them, you'll get more and more ideas, and we'll revisit it some other time. Wind is all physical movements, as I pointed out in the slide: muscular, skeletal, flexibility, excretion, right? Sweating, anything that causes movement, blood flow in your body, movement of prana, every movement is related to the wind element. Wind element predominantly pertains to touch, as the space element predominantly pertains to sound. Wind element pertains to the sense of touch. Touch is an energy. I mentioned it perhaps in another context. Sound, of course, is an energy, as many of us understand it, because science has also understood that. But touch, we have somehow understood touch as only pertaining to human touch and touch in the skin and so on. Touch is an energy that exists in the universe. Plants respond to touch. So touch is an energy, okay, which we experience through the skin. That is how we understand this. Skin doesn't create touch. Skin experiences the energy of touch. You experience the energy of touch through skin. So through that sense, energy of touch, you can pass prana. That is why gurus bless and so on. So wind. Anyway, space and wind together create vata. This energy system of vata, which is predominantly movement, is primarily controlled or overseen by space and wind. Okay, this is enough for us to understand this point. Then comes Pitta. Pitta is bile, fire, predominantly related to the mixed section in the body, predominantly fire in nature. Just like Vata is predominantly wind, it has got a space element also in it, right? But predominantly wind. Pitta is predominantly fire. Okay? Transformation. What does fire do? What is the quality of fire? Quality of fire is to transform. What does it transform in this case? It transforms food into energy. Okay? So Pitta is fire. Then it can't act on its own. So it combines with water to form the bile in our body. So in our body, bile is, so you have hyperacidity and so on, is excess of pitta that comes in. That is fire and water. Now, people who have pitta, excess pitta or prone to pitta, will not tolerate the sun. They cannot tolerate the heat. If you're exposed to the sun, they actually become sick. Why? Because of being pitta, because pitta is predominant in their bodies. By nature, the body is hot. So they cannot take more heat from the sun. The body reacts negatively, badly. So you have to understand, you can't force your children into the sun and say, go out and play, or take them for long journeys in the sun. If they are pitta predominant, they are going to throw up and they are going to get into that kind of a sick situation. Of course, it's not life threatening unless they are overexposed and so on. But this is what pitta causes. On the other hand, vata type, extreme vata type, are cool because of the wind. They are cool. So they can deal with a lot of heat. They'll always love the sun. So understand people who love tropics, who just say, oh, I just love the sun. I want to go into the sun. Versus people who say, I can't stand the sun. Not in a general common sense term of liking to bathe in the sun, bask in the sun versus not. Not necessarily in those, but where the body itself reacts. So you have pitta, fire and water. People who are in pitta constitution will love the cold, will love the snow. Naturally, the body will be, the skin and everything will really begin to shine when they are in a cold climate. Okay, so it's more than just what I like in my mind. It is actually what my body also reacts to. Fire, transformation, digestion, vision. Fire is light, right? You need light to see. So the quality of the stomach, the fire in your stomach, determines the quality of your eyesight, vision, and of course also higher into the quality of your intelligence, perception, and intuition, and so on. So vision related, the temperature in the body, thirst, appetite, all of this is related to the fire element. Okay. That's why I keep saying that you have to feel hungry to eat, and it's good to feel hungry because it keeps the fire alive. Not over fast and overdo it so that it creates some kind of acidity, but it's a healthy way to keep this fire burning steadily. Give it just enough fuel so it continues to burn, not overdo it. Okay. Water, this water quality is the same, and it mixed with fire. The mixture creates a different effect. The same water we'll discuss with earth a little later. But now fire and water. What is water? Water is assimilation, water is absorption, water is fluidity, water is also motion. There is movement in the wind, there is also movement and mobility created in water. There is also flexibility in water, digestive juices, and so on. So all of this is also connected with water. Water is heavy, wind is not heavy. So these are qualities that differentiate. There are certain qualities that are common. Both talk about being fluid, being moving in all directions. But wind is light, water is heavy. Correct? So think in these terms. We'll explore this a little more. So water and fire together create pitta. Okay? So that is transformation. That is the second energy. The third energy, kapha. Kapha in Tamil, and I'm sure I don't know if it's in other languages in the south, but Tamil especially, kabam we'll say. Kabam means phlegm, phlegm in the body. A lot of water, but it's you know what phlegm is, right? It's a yucky thing that comes out when you have a cold and you spit it in the bathroom in the sink, and so that is thick, fluidy, slimy kind of thing. That has got what? It's kind of solid, but it's not really solid, right? So it is earth and water together. Now, the quality of earth is stability. The quality of kapha is stability. I use the word grounding, to feel the ground, to be connected to the ground. So that is kapha, water and earth together. So here, let us see earth. Earth is stability, earth is slowness, earth is heavy, earth connects to the sense of smell, because when you smell something means there is actually a physical matter. If you consider the other elements, among all the other elements, the one that has the quality of smell or can have the quality of smell is Prithvi, earth. Earth alone smells. Water by itself has no smell. It can be smelly because of mix of something else, but by itself, water has no smell. Rain has no smell, but when rain touches the earth gives a beautiful perfume. You smell the rain, right? So that is the smell of the earth. Water has no smell. Fire has no smell. Air by itself has no smell. You can pollute the air and create smell, but by itself, air has no smell. Space, of course, has no smell. So when you talk of smell, it pertains to matter. So now you understand when we talked of onion and garlic in the previous class. Whenever there is too much smell, too much odor, that means your consciousness may get trapped in the earth element. That is why when you want to meditate and in religious times, there's an added factor. They would say avoid things which are too smelly, too odor-like, right? So things like that. Examined from that point of view. Water. Water we just talked about. The same quality, but now it mixed with earth. Together they perform a different role. Okay? As same assimilation, fluidity, motion, all of that comes. But when it mixes with earth, it becomes even more slower. Clay-like. Think of clay. Think of food that has a clay-like quality. So we will discuss those qualities in a bit. So thus you have three qualities. Vata, which is movement. Predominant quality in Vata is movement. Pitta, the quality of fire, which is transformation. And the quality of Kapha, which is grounding, stable. So one is grounding, one is stable, one is moving. Like I said earlier, two extremes. In between, there is transformation. So our body is constantly trying to balance all these three forces of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. How do you guarantee a fairly good state of health? When these three doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, come into a state of near balance, I would say, because when the moment is balanced, it's like one straight line. So each of them is slowly coming closer and closer. And when they're almost balanced, you have cleansed the body of the three doshas. You have cleansed them of imbalances. So they come into a state of balance. So practice of yogasanas, practice of pranayama, all of this slowly begin to reduce these doshas and actually transform your body. So now you connect this and bring it into a state of balance. And that state of balance in the body is reflected in equanimity in the mind. So the mind understands equanimity as an actual experience. The brain experiences equanimity in the body through the balance of these three doshas. And that is applied in our thinking as well. So when in Krishna, when he says in the Bhagavad Gita, Sitoshna Sukha Dukkeshu Samasanga Vivarjitaha Tulya Ninda Stitir Mauni Santushto Yena Kena Chitta. Tulya Ninda, praise and blame, Stitir Mauni. So, whether it is hot or cold, praise or blame, black or white, and so on, the one who maintains equanimity is my dear devotee. If you want to go into that state in spirituality and be a devotee of Lord Krishna, if you want to bring that into an actual experience where the Krishna consciousness opens up, how do we get there? if we don't live a lifestyle which brings about balances like this, then that remains a very abstract, philosophical, theoretical concept. Equanimity becomes a philosophy. And we say, oh, yeah, once in a while I feel equanimity. How do I maintain equanimity in my everyday life? Give me a meditation technique. Give me a breathing technique to practice equanimity. Why am I being swung back and forth in different mood swings and so on and so forth? Why can't I be calm and steady? What is the answer? All of that is a reflection of the imbalances of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. What is Vata and Pitta, Kapha? They are reflections of the five elements. So we keep coming back to the five elements and the harmony and balance in these five elements as affecting not only our health, but our mental state as well. And thus, when the mind understands it, then the spirit experience and a spiritual level become even more profound and real. Somebody asked me recently in a text, so is self-realization really possible in the here and now? Can we actually experience it in our mind and through this awareness in this dimension? The answer is yes, you can. But the path to it is not easy because you and I have complicated our lives. We have complicated this otherwise very simple life of just living in harmony with five elements. We have torn ourselves away from the five elements. We live in isolation and so on. So the path, yes, it's absolutely possible. How? Because once we bring these five elements in balance through the three doshas, bringing the three doshas into balance through yoga, through practice, through meditation, through chants and sounds and creating frequencies in the space element and so on and so forth, and adopting a food and a lifestyle, then what happens is when the actual balance, the elements begin to harmonize and balance in the body, the mind begins to experience all those concepts and bring it into reality. So we get glimpses of the higher dimensions in this state. And then you transcend it. Because that experience becomes so powerful, you go searching for that. And then you're ready to transcend. If spirituality, I guess at some point it was easy, but now it's not. If it is so easy, then everybody would have been enlightened just by wishing, oh yeah, I want liberation. I don't want to come back to this earth. But wishing alone is not going to get you there. What have you tasted? What is your reality? So how do we transcend this consciousness being trapped in the earth and water element? So bring in more fire, bring in more space, bring in more wind in your lifestyle. And then the consciousness begins to transcend the water element and earth it's trapped in. That is how we are studying this. So please understand, even though I might seem I'm repeating it, I want to keep not lose track of why are you and I studying this. Otherwise, you can Google all of this and make your own notes much better than what I am doing at this point, I guess. The point here is I'm hoping that you will begin to incorporate this in your everyday life. That's the idea of translating it. The idea of how I have benefited by this, coming from a deeply diabetic history, from a background of a family, and blood pressure and so on and so forth. At the age of 60, I have not touched a single pill yet in my life, and I owe it to an awareness of these five elements. And I owe it to my yoga practice, and I owe it to my food and lifestyle habits. Anything and everything is possible. It's never too late to rectify. Of course, you have to use common sense. If you are already past your prime and if you are on severe medication, taking care of certain illnesses, you have to use common sense as to how to jump into this kind of lifestyle. But if you're young and if you want to prevent this from happening, if you're in your 30s and 40s and listening to this and you say, I don't want to be sick when I'm old, then understand this. Begin to apply these principles right away. And you will certainly, I assure you, be able to enjoy a very, very good, healthy state in your body, in your mind, and your spiritual awareness will not be a philosophy, it will be a real experience. Okay, let me proceed. Five elements, we got that. Three doshas, we are getting that, right? Now I'm going to add the third complication. In order to understand this more in detail, Ayurveda goes a little further. And then they apply what is called qualities, more qualities to these. Okay, and I'm only sharing it because we might refer to it later on, and you might, once you understand it, it's easy. So bear with me. This is where I said we get more into detail than perhaps is required at this point, but I'll feel guilty if I don't share this with you, because it's a very fascinating aspect. And that is, there you go, the 20 gunas or qualities. And I know you're shaking your head already. You're like, oh gosh, 20 more. You had 5 plus 3, 8, now 20. Let me, there's a good news here. So it's just basically 10 pairs of opposites. So if I say heavy, oh, okay, heavy and light, solid and liquid. See, there you go. 4 is already taken care of, right? Things like that. Okay, sharp and smooth, and so on. So there are 10 pairs of opposites. Now, for those of you who are nerdy and you want to study Ayurveda in detail, there perhaps more or less of these opposites. I've taken a general consensus among all schools of Ayurveda and considered these 10 pairs of opposites. It's helped me, and it's good enough for me to apply on my everyday life. So like I said, I'm not looking to get scholarship in Ayurveda. But for those of you who want to study, you will say, oh, but Charaka said something else instead of some other qualities. And Sushruta, these are all scholars who have helped us understand the ancient Vedic treatise and brought it down. So each of them brought in their own interpretations from the Vedic treatise and shared with the world. And then we have kind of summarized all of that as we go along. And so there's so much of work already done in this field. So these 10 pairs of opposites that we're going to study are the ones which are very commonly understood, plus minus 1 or 2, which might be worded a little differently. Okay. What are they called? They are called Guruvari Gunas. Guru plus Adi. Guru is one of the gunas. Guru means heavy. Guru means big, bulky, and heavy. That is why the planet Jupiter is called Guru. Not now, not today. This is thousands of years ago. The Vedic seers and the rishis knew that planet Jupiter is huge and big. And therefore, in order to describe that, they called it Guru. Guru means heavy. Guru means huge. Guru means expanse. Guru means big. Why do we apply the word Guru to a teacher? Because the Guru is solid, rooted in spirituality. Okay? He is big in his vast, in his perceptions, in his vision, and so on. So the word Guru. Guru also means bringing light, and there are so many meanings to each of these Sanskrit words. The language of Sanskrit itself is based on intuition and understanding. So words mean different in different contexts. In this context, Guru means heavy. Guru Adi. Adi means and others. Guru and others qualities, they are called Guruvari Gunas. Gunas means qualities. So Guruvari Gunas, Guru plus other qualities. Guruvari Gunas. So if you are Googling, you can Google Guruvari Gunas and see what others have to say, other teachers have to say, other schools have to say, and so on. You can compare and contrast and take this from where I'm leaving you at this point. So we're going to discuss each of these qualities and see which of these elements pertain in each of these qualities. So let's dive into the qualities. Guru. Guru means big and heavy. And I'll go through this at a fairly kind of fast pace. I'm not at this point able to give you examples of food or vegetables for each of these, but I leave that for you to do your homework. It's not so difficult to find vegetables or fruits that are heavy, like pumpkin and watermelon and so on. They are heavy and big. So they have the quality of Guru, but that's not the only quality, right? There are other qualities in a single vegetable, or there are many qualities imbibed in a single fruit. You got to take that. Don't think of one fruit like an apple has only one of these 20 qualities. It can have a combination of 2 or 3 qualities. So Guru, earth and water. What is the opposite of Guru? Laghu. Laghu means light. Guru is heavy, Laghu is light. So what is light? Light can't have earth and water, right? So what is the elements of Lagu? Lagu has fire, air, ether, all the others which are much lighter. Because now you see right here, you got to understand that this forms the basis of practicing of yoga and kundalini and all of that. Earth and water flow downwards, therefore they are heavy. Fire, air, and ether. Fire goes up, air goes all around. Air, unless it's forced, you can't, it doesn't come down. You have to force the air down, right? Like you have in these shops where you enter, they have an air curtain. How do they do the air curtain? They force the air from top down. So that is the only way you can force the air to come down. But otherwise, air always moves up, moves sideways. So air is light. Fire moves up, is light. And space, of course, is extremely light. Keep these, understand these, because when we come to the air element and understand vayus and various vayus, you'll be able to join all these dots together. So Lagu is fire, air, and ether. Guru is heavy, earth, and water. Simple? All right. Let's proceed to the next one. Shita, cold. I put the Sanskrit words for those of you who want to understand Sanskrit, because sometimes the English letterings and the way it's pronounced might throw you off. But so I put the Sanskrit language in there. For those of you who can read Hindi and Sanskrit, might be able to relate it better. Shita means cold. So in Rama and Sita, that Sita word comes from here. Rama is hot. Rama, the Ram energy of the fire. Sita is the exact opposite of that. She's the calming one. So it's like that. That's why the word Shita is cold. So Sita there represented the water and the earth element. Ram represented the fire element. So in the stories, you got to understand all of them had symbolic representations of these elements in their names and so on and so forth. Hanuman is there for the wind element. So like that it goes on. Anyway, Shita, cold. What is cold? Water is cold, air is cold. Fire can't be cold. Space has really no qualities. It's clear and fine. Earth could be considered cold, but what brings coolness to the earth is water only. So water is basically cold. That's why we had to boil water, right? By nature, water is not hot. Water and air, cold. What is the opposite? Ushna. Ushna is hot. Shita is cold. Ushna is hot. What is hot? Fire. So there is chilies and all of that, has predominantly fire quality. It also has an element of earth because it is solid, but it has got predominantly, it is fire in its quality. So like this, you got to, when you're taking a fruit and bringing fruits into your lifestyle, fruits, vegetables, once you understand these, you'll be able to apply them. Don't get paranoid about this, okay? Don't get so paranoid, then you will give up everything and say, mind, this is driving me crazy. But just playfully bring in these, learn them, and then slowly apply them. Just become aware of what kind of foods I eat, what kind of thoughts I entertain. Do they have these qualities? Am I too fiery in my thoughts and in my actions? Am I too earth and watery, heavy, guru-like in my actions, in my thoughts, in my food? So those are the kind of things you have to think about. So we did 4. Light and heavy, cold and hot. Then comes snigdha, unctuous. I got this from one website, unctuous. And I had to actually Google the meaning of it. So I put it there just to tease you all also. Snigdha is more like sticky, soapy, more sticky in nature, like ghee, for example, clarified butter, if you think has this quality of snigdha, okay, predominantly water in nature. Not necessarily slimy, but it's more sticky and soapy type. Snigdha. The opposite of that, of course, because of water, you have something called Ruksha. Ruksha is the dry and hard and dry, so it has fire and air in it. So opposite of that, Snigdha and Ruksha. So one is soapy, thick, with little mobility in them. That's why I use the word ghee. Butter, clarified butter could come into this category. Then you have dry, things that are very dry, fire and air. Like beans and other things are very dry, right? Before you cook them, what is the nature of beans? They're dry. Then you cook them, put them in water, and you cook them and so on. But there's a lot of air in Ruksha food. There could be a lot of fire in Ruksha food. Okay. Then comes dull, manda. Manda is predominantly earth. They are dull in nature. They're dull. They slow it. They slow us down. Now, alcohol is a good example of dullness, manda quality. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that that's a quality. Similarly, meat, red meat especially, has this quality of manda, dulls the thinking, dulls, slows down. Now science is some slightly different approach. For example, you might argue, for those of you who eat meat, might say about what protein and so on and so forth. But there's protein in the air and fire food as well. There are proteins in plants as well, where there are other qualities than the quality of dullness. In my life, I try and avoid as much as manda as possible. I've tried manda, I have tried alcohol, I have tried all of this to understand how does that impact my meditation. Because I won't talk to you if I'm not if I'm not experienced something, I don't practice something, I won't. Because my idea is to share with you my path, not teach you from as a teacher from a student to students like that. So we are learning this. So manda creates a dullness where the consciousness won't experience intuition. It brings down intuition. It brings down, forget the intellectual impairment of all of that. The fact that when you're subtly tuned into higher levels of consciousness, those doors begin to slowly close because you're caught in the manda. Manda is dullness where you will say, wait a minute, what are you talking? I have no idea what you're talking. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's just going beyond my head. That's dullness. In order to be sharp, an ability to cognize, immediately interpret and say, aha, I understand what you're saying. That is sharpness. That is tiksha. Tikshana. Tikshana is sharpness. Pungent, sharpness. This is why perhaps pungent, I use the word pungent only because this is why perhaps Baba told me, as I mentioned in the last class, talli chese melu, ulli chesedu. That what onion gives you when a mother cannot give you is perhaps the sharpness is brought in by pungent food. Again, not too much, but the ability. So fire and air quality is there in sharpness. Earth quality is there in manda. Manda doesn't even have water quality. You might say, oh, alcohol is watery, but doesn't mean that it has water quality. It is predominantly earth. That's why after having alcohol, people go to sleep because they can't do anything else, right? So meat again is one example of bringing down the ability to think. Now, if you go back hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, when the society was understood and studied from categories point of view, so that the king could administer properly. Please, I'm using the words very carefully here. So the society was divided into priests and teachers, that category that were teaching, that called them Brahmins. The category that was for protection of the society, they were called soldiers. There were categories that were in business and trading, so they were called Vaishyas. And there was a category that sought employment. They were called Shudras. So meat was given predominantly, was made available from the kingdom and so on. To which community? To the soldiers predominantly. Because the soldiers had to use animal strength. They had to be strong. They had to be powerful. They didn't have to think. The king and his ministers would divine a plan of war. They just have to carry out. What does that mean? They would have manda. You don't want them to think too much. You want them to obey, right? That is why meat is predominantly given where muscles are developed, body is developed, the earth in you is developed. You may have a shining body, but the dullness will be there in the intellect. So understand it, explore it. You don't have to accept this, but think about it. So manda is that quality that pertains to those kind of foods. Tikshna is fire and air. Same thing with sweet also. So the ability of sweet has a water element in it. When you eat something sweet, predominantly earth, but it is mixed with water. That also begins to dull you generally. But so we are not even talking of white sugar and all. Like I said, I don't even consider that as food. I think it's a very bad chemical. But sweet with jaggery and so on are good, but not beyond a point. So they have earth and water element in them. So manda and tikshana then come. So we did 6 of them. All right. So then you have sthira. There's a quality of stability in some kinds of foods, which is predominantly earth, which is good. Makes you stable and strong and powerful. And then you also have sara. Sara means the one that is exactly opposite to earth. So water moves, air moves, fire can also be in this, but predominantly water and air. Fire has only one direction going up, and it's going up only because of transformation. So fire in itself is not you can't consider movement in fire. Wind and water is what really moves, right? So water and air um, is considered for Sara, movement. So flexibility and movement and all of that is considered from a Sara point of view. Mrida. Mrida, that is soft. What is soft? Water is soft. Ether is soft. Air is considered actually on the other side. Air is sometimes considered hard, sometimes considered rough. Gentle breeze is there, which is soft in nature. So don't take these directly as something written on stone. So you can argue either way. But these are just to open your mind to further thinking. So you have soft and hard. You have stable and unstable, or stable and mobile, where there is mobility in one, where there is solidity, stability in one. Then there is softness in one. There is hardness, katina. Katina and mrida. So soft and hard. Predominantly anything which is very hard is earthy in nature. Okay. Now coconut is hard, earthy, but it has also got water inside it. So all of earth doesn't mean manda and dullness. Please don't mistake. There's a lot of things which are earthy but which are very, very powerful and cleansing. Pumpkin, for example, is earthy. It's a big, heavy earth, and there is water in it. But then when you make pumpkin juice, you use pumpkin juice, especially white pumpkin juice, to do a lot of internal cleansing. If you're not on any medication and you're generally of a good health, you want to reset your body in 3 days, you can just do pumpkin juice fasting. Consider that. But again, please, I'm not suggesting this as one remedy for everyone. But these are things you can consider, because then what happens? I'm using earth and water, but I'm using it to cleanse. So there are qualities in this which in certain vegetables which are predominantly earth and water, but because I'm using the water in that to cleanse. So don't understand earth as something which is only going to make you heavy and grounding. That grounding comes because of cleanliness as well. Okay. So katina, mruda and katina. Then you have Vishadha. Vishadha is clarity, clear. And for some reason, in many Ayurvedic books I've read, and I've not figured this out clearly at this point, but they have given all 5 elements has this quality, could have this quality, of clarity, clearness. Vishadha means white. Vishadha is shining. Vishadha is brilliant. Vishadha is clear. So all these qualities are there. White is also considered clear in many schools, and therefore they could have used Vishadha and brought in earth. Like I just mentioned, white pumpkin could have a Vishadha quality because it is white in nature. White potatoes are predominantly earth, but they are also white, and so on. So you have earth, water, air, fire. They all the word idea. The word clear makes sense with regard to water, air, and fire, and so on, and ether especially. But clarity and earth, I would rather ascribe it to the color of white. There is brilliance in fire, so that could be considered Vishadha. So these are qualities again of these elements that are found in foods predominantly that we eat. Pitchila. Pitchila is slimy, clear and slimy. So the very fact that it's slimy is just water element predominantly. There could be an element of earth, but predominantly it is water. Slakshana is smooth, water and ether. Khara is rough, earth and air. Smooth. These are not good and bad qualities, they're just different qualities, opposites of all these qualities. So combinations of all these qualities apply. Some of them have predominantly a couple of these qualities, sometimes some will have 3 or 4 qualities, right? Tomatoes are smooth to touch, so they have water and etherness in them as well. So it's like that. There are so many of this. So it's open for you to consider them. Research. There's nothing written in hard stone. Sukshma, things which are fine, subtle, fire, air, and ether. So taste by itself is sukshma. Sthula is bulky. That can be seen and felt, very evident, gross and subtle, if you will. So things which are very gross, like very much in your face type, have an earth like quality in them. Things which are very subtle have a fire like quality, air like quality, ether like quality. I can be very soft in my talk, very subtle, but I could have fire in my speech. So I can hurt somebody by simply passing a silent remark. Right? We have seen that in movies or in conversations. I could hurt somebody by just simply softly whispering a remark that can hurt them. So subtly, softly, you can have fire in your words. So think of these qualities. So fire has a subtlety in it. Sandra is solid, the last 2 qualities, and Drava is liquid. Liquid is water, Sandra solid is predominantly earth. You can go back, rewind and take notes. Just mention, take notes of these qualities if you haven't already. Take notes, and then whenever you are engaging yourself in preparing a meal, think of these qualities and see how much of which quality is there in your meal predominantly, and you will be able to understand the relation between what you eat and what elements pertain to you or prevail in your body. That is the idea of this. So very quickly, I just want to say, so when we talk of earth element, we are talking of heavy, talking of snigdha, unctuous, if I'm saying that rightly. Then katina, hard. We're talking of rough, khara. We're talking of dull, manda. We talk of stability, sthira. We talk of vishada, clear. And then we talk of solid, sandra. And we also talk of bulk, sthula. So these are all qualities of the earth element. I'll leave that for you for a second or two so you can pause and perhaps take it down. All these are qualities of the Prithvi Mahabhuta. Prithvi is earth, Mahabhuta is the element. Then we go to the next one, the water element. Summarizing from what we learned, we have heavy, which is part of the water element. Water has more when you actually take it down. So you have Snigdha is also part of, you have many things in common between earth and water. Heaviness, unctuous, then it is cold, Shita, it's mobile, it's Sara, then it is soft, Mrida, it is slimy, Pichila, it is liquid, Drava, it is smooth, Slakshana, it is clear, Vishadha, it is fine, Sukshma. So, okay, let me go back. Okay, so these are all the qualities of the water element: heavy, unctuous, cold, mobile, soft, slimy, liquid, smooth, clear, fine. All these are qualities of the water element. Then we go on to the fire element. Agni Mahabhuta. Agni is fire. Just like Jala is water, Agni is fire. So Agni, of course, is hot. Ushna, it's dry. It's Ruksha. You don't have wet fires, right? Dry. Wetness can create fire, like water can generate electricity, but electricity by itself is fire. It's dry. So hot and dry. It's light. Laghu, it's sharp and pungent. Tiksha, there's fire element there. Vishadha, it's clear and it is fine. It's sukshma. Is there one more? No. All right, let me go back and hold that font for you if you want to pause and take your notes. So these are qualities of the fire element. So in your food that you eat or in the drinks that you have, think of these qualities if you have them in your food. And if so, how much of that? Is it too much? Too much of fire is definitely not good. Absence of fire, again, is not good. It's a balance of all the 6 states. So, fire element. Then comes air element, Vayu Mahabhuta. Light, Laghu, Shita, cold, dry, Ruksha. Again, is sharing a lot with the fire. See, sharp, pungent, Tiksha. It is rough, Khara. It is clear, Vishadha. And fine, it is Sukshma. Fine, subtle, they all kind of appear as synonyms. That's why some of the scholars use different adjectives. But I just took what is more common and then shared with you all. So, air element has these based on what we have learned so far. And the last one is space or ether, Akasha Mahabhuta. What is it? Clear, fine, and soft, and one more, smooth. So all this is part of the Akasha Mahabhuta. Ether element. Clear, fine, soft, and smooth. So it seems like as you go travel up the elements and you come to the most subtler elements, the qualities also become very less. Almost like that's why when we say we transcend the space element, the 5th chakra from here, there are no qualities left. Because all the qualities that we understand is all connected with the 5 elements. Guna atita, rupa varjita. Guna atita means the one who has transcended qualities. In other words, transcended the 5 elements. Rupa varjita, transcended. Therefore, when you transcend qualities, what happens? You transcend form as well. So the transcending will come. We'll leave that aside. That's not part of this discussion. Here, understanding these qualities, understanding which of these qualities pertain to which element helps us. Though all of these are not particularly pertaining to water element, I thought we have to study it under the water element, because if I delay it at this point and introduce it further, I might lose track of its application in our food. So this is perhaps a good time to introduce the gunas, the qualities that have these elements. Each of these elements have certain qualities, right? So what are those qualities? That is what we are trying to understand here. And how I can translate this quality into food that I eat. So that's how it comes. So let me quickly summarize this another way. Vata. So when you go back to the 3 doshas, what is Vata? Vata has got ether and air. Ether is smooth and soft. Air is light. Shita is cold, dry, sharp, pungent, rough. And together, both of them have these 2 qualities, clear and fine. So that is Vata. Look at that. That is the Vata quality. When you have food in your system, if there's a lot of this, then there is a lot of Vata being generated in your constitution. Then comes Pitta. Pitta is again what? Water and fire. Qualities of water: heavy, unctuous, which is sticky and soapy. Cold, its mobility is there. I say mobility or essence. The word essence is because when we say Sara, the Sara, even we use it on an everyday basis, even in Hindi, uska sar, I want the sar of that. I want the essence of that particular. So when you crush something and take essence out of it, the essence is usually liquid in nature, right? So Sara is also considered as essence. That's why I put the word essences When we talk of essences, oil, essence, and so on, it has that watery element in it. So that is that quality of Sara. So Sara is essence, essences, essence, mobility, soft, slimy, liquid, smooth, and you have fire, which is hot, dry, light, sharp. And together they have these two qualities: clear, both are clear, both are smooth, fine. So that is water and fire. Then you have Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Kapha is earth and water. Water is cold, and we studied that. Earth is hard, rough, dull, stable, solid, bulky. So combine these two, and you have these things in common. Both are heavy, both are unctuous, both are clear. Both have qualities of clear. And like I said, the word clear could mean white, could mean brilliant, could mean shining, and so on. Vishadha, snigdha, heavy, guru quality. So you have Vata, Pitta, and Kapha with these qualities. Let me end this with these, therefore, coming back to the 6 days. Since I'm recording this and I'm not live, I might have exceeded 1 hour. I'm not sure. Let me see. Perhaps just bear with me another 5 more minutes. But I do want to finish this here and not drag it into another class. So 6 days and 5 elements. Madhura, sweet, has earth and water. Sour, amla, as earth and fire. Think of gooseberries, right? They're very sour in taste, but just solid. So gooseberry is sour, earth and fire. Of course, you can juice them as well, but they're not known for juicing. You can make pickles out of them and so on. Anyway, astringent, kashaya. What does that taste? That taste is a combination of earth and air element in them. So when I say earth and water, you would ascribe those qualities into them, and then that becomes what all sweet has, a whole bunch of database of qualities that a sweet has, madhura, and so on and so forth. That's why we studied those qualities. So you can go back and forth, make your own permutation combinations, and come to a better understanding of these 5. Then you have salty, lavanya. Lavanya, salt. Salt, of course, comes from water. So water is very much a part of salt. And it has fire in it. Pungent, katu. It has fire and air in it. Bitter, tikta, as air and ether in it. So tikta, bitter. Why do I keep saying include bitter in your diet? Because of air and ether quality. Both these qualities are light. That means your constitution will be light. You will be feeling upbeat and so on. If you bring in more bitter, again, not too much. You want grounding. Certainly, you want some grounding in your system, in your constitution. Otherwise, you'll be in a la-la land, right? You want to be grounded. You want to be stable. You want to be able to move a bit slow, not rush into something and be impulsive in your movements, in your thinking. So take everything, understand everything. But because we avoid bitterness, we might be avoiding the idea of being light. So what we are tending towards, in like I discussed in the earth element classes, is we are tending to become more and more physical in our consciousness, and therefore we become too slow now. We become too dull, too slow because of our overindulgence in sweet, for example, earth and water element. So these stays with an understanding of the gunas will help you understand how you can bring in elements into your everyday life. And slowly, as you bring this, a transformation begins to happen at the cellular level, and the body itself begins to reflect the balance. And therefore, health is a byproduct. Health is given to you. But your aim is not be obsessed about health. Aim is to balance these 5 elements, because balancing these 5 elements, one of the benefits is health, but a greater benefit is mental equanimity and an immense ability to create, an immense ability to tap into your inner potentials. And then the greatest of all is the ability for development of intuition and intellect, for us to perceive the other dimensions. Those are the main benefits, if you will. Health is one of those incidental things. Oh yes, you need the vehicle to be in good condition, right? That's it. But you don't keep staring at the vehicle in your garage every time. You're not obsessed with that car so much that every night before you go to sleep, you touch it and you give it a kiss, good night kiss, and so on. That sounds ridiculous. Maybe when it's new for the first day, you might. But after a couple of days, you're like, okay, the car is good, it's been maintained, it's done its job. What is the car's job? It's just a vehicle to transport you to wherever you want to go. So the job in this is a vehicle. So there is a particular level of importance that needs to be given. But beyond that, that's it. The job is done here. The vehicle's health is therefore an incidental benefit. The greater benefit is your ability to travel using this vehicle to travel wherever you want, however you want, learning how to drive and go. And that learning how to drive and the ability to travel and to know the path to these dimensions is what is given to you when you bring all these elements in balance. When air and ether begin to join and begin to awaken those divine dimensions, we'll understand this more with pranayama and the Vayu principle, then it's an amazing experience. But then if my food habits don't reflect that, then there is internal conflicts that happen, which manifest as external diseases or broken relationships or losses and so on. So understand that everything around us is a combinations of five elements. And if I harness the energies of five elements within me, and I'll end this class, I promise, with this. But please take this statement that comes to me from the depths of my belief. If I harness the five elements and bring balance into myself, into my body, then that balance begins to reflect as a balanced, harmonious reality around me. Harmony in every level, harmony in relationships, harmony in health, harmony in the home, harmony in the community, harmony elsewhere. All of that is a representation, a reflection, a reaction, a resound of the harmony or otherwise of the five elements in me. If you understand this, you are halfway to enlightenment. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your patience. Until we meet again, stay blessed, stay inspired, and please stay safe. Let's end this class with one Om and three Shantis. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.